Hello everybody and welcome to the Showcast, a series of candid conversations from film festivals and film markets everywhere, brought to you by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. And you're very welcome to the second episode of our podcast coverage of the 2024 edition of Meeting Point Vilnius, taking place within the context of the annual Vilnius International Film Festival in Lithuania. I'm excited to share with you an insightful and candid conversation with esteemed filmmaker Agnieszka Zwiefka, who attended for a special presentation of Zwiefka, her documentary portrait of an 85-year-old star DJ from Warsaw in Poland. But that's not all, as we take this opportunity to ask her about her latest documentary, Secret Trees, which unveils the story of a Kurdish refugee girl stranded in a no man's land between Poland and Belarus, and that recently premiered at CPH Docs in Copenhagen. So, throughout our conversation, we explore Agnieszka's remarkable journey from a transition from investigative journalism to documentary filmmaking, and she shares insights into the essence of her craft, emphasizing the necessity of a touch of madness and an abundance of courage. So buckle up as we embark on a profound exploration of storytelling, art, and the indomitable spirit of documentary filmmaking with the one and only Agnieszka Zwiefka. Fire up on Audio Teeny and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. This is the Showcast. Agnieszka, welcome to the Showcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you on our little show for the coverage of the Vilnius Meeting Point event and also, the Vilnius International Film Festival. And you were kind of here presenting a screening of Zwiefka, but you've other things going on at the same time. So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more. But this is actually the first time we talk.
Yeah.
And so what I like to do in these cases is to break the proverbial ice by asking a very simple question. What is your earliest memory of cinema?
It's really a good question. My parents watching a film on their television. It was a black and white TV set in communist Poland. And it was definitely an adult film. And I woke up during the night and I was sneaking into the living room to see what they are doing there so late. And I remember these images. It was really, I think, beautifully shot. But what could I have known at the age of 4? So yeah, I watched an adult film at the age of 4, peeking into my parents' living room.
So that's interesting. I mean, it was almost like it was exposing you to a forbidden world, things that people don't talk about.
Exactly. And I love the forbidden world in my films, actually. Maybe that's something.
Well, let's get to that a little bit, because you're a renowned documentarian. Has that always been the direction in which you wanted to take your career? In other words, when did you start thinking about working within documentary?
It was by accident, actually. I wanted to become an actress. And
really?
I made it to an acting school, but my mom convinced me that this is not a way to go, all these crazy artists.
Yeah, those crazy artists.
Yeah. So I started to work in the field of journalism, investigative journalism, until it was too much for me. And then I moved slowly into documentary world, but I am also planning to move forward to fiction.
Well, so
because I don't think this, this division, fiction, documentary, is accurate anymore. All my documentary films are staged in a way they are hybrids. They have these creative elements, and many fiction films use the language of documentary. Yeah. So I prefer to divide films into good and bad ones.
Arguably, there's never really been such a very strict divide between documentaries and fiction, So, but you said that you eventually got into investigative journalism. Yeah. Was there something, because not everybody thinks about studying that, but usually there's something that inspires people to study investigative journalism. How did that occur?
I studied just journalism, and honestly, it was by accident. I would have never made this choice now, knowing much more about the world, because I think it stopped me from making what I really love for many years, and that is films. And investigative journalism is really far from cinema, and it's quite dangerous as well. But I guess it kind of prepared me to take all the steps necessary to cover some stories. It was a good training in a way.
Right. But isn't documentary sometimes also dangerous?
Yeah, I did a film about the Tamil tiger fighters in Sri Lanka, and I have just recently premiered at CPH a film from the Polish-Belarusian border, the refugee crisis, which was not the easiest and safest to make.
Absolutely.
So yeah, of course, somehow these skills come in handy, but still.
You have to be a little courageous to kind of go with a camera in these worlds.
Stupid, and I think all of us documentarians are, in a way, you might call it courageous, but I would say stupid most of the time, because we start a journey that lasts 4 or 5 years with our characters. This is, it's like a marriage. Even if there are no dangerous situations, elements in it, you still expose yourself to a lot of pain and suffering.
I'll ask you a question as well, because you said that you have a background in acting. Do you feel like somehow that training, let's say, has helped you later in your documentary career?
Definitely helped me pitching the films.
Okay,
that helps.
That's good.
Not to have a stage fright and so on. So in the market world, yes. And in the film world, I think I know how to read a lie. So I know when people lie in films, and I think it's a helpful skill.
Okay, this is really interesting actually, because interactions with people when you're holding a camera in front of them naturally change, right? What's your opinion on that?
Everyone wears a mask, right? That's like you wear a mask, I wear a mask. We want to be perceived in a certain way. The role of a documentary film director is to take this mask off. And sometimes you do it with just one quick move. And the other times you need to do it slowly, one step after another, until the mask is off and the protagonist doesn't even know that.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think this is one of the key assets, because you need to get into the truth of a human being. And sometimes actually the masks that our documentary characters, Vika included, put on are much less beautiful than they really are. They just don't realize that.
Interesting. Vika, of course, just to introduce it a little bit, is a documentary about a Polish DJ who is in her 80s. Remarkable.
85.
85 now.
And playing tonight.
Playing tonight. Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. I do a little DJing on the side. And I mean, I think she has me beat. I heard that she started DJing in her 50s.
60s.
60s. My goodness, that's impressive, I mean, I hope to be that age and kind of want to take on something. I'm thinking about like Kung Fu or something like that. But no, it's interesting. So like if we talk about her, for example, how long did it take to gain her confidence or trust? And maybe, you talked about those masks. I mean, how long did that process take?
Long, actually, with Vika. Although it's the most colorful and the happiest film I have ever made. Because we wanted to make this feel-good movie. But it was incredibly a long process to make her trust me and open up and show her underbelly, all the pains and sorrows. Because Vika, as a diva, as a stage persona, she really knows how to wear the mask. So with such people, I think it's even more difficult. But it's just time. You have to be patient. You have to be there with your protagonist.
So what does it take? I mean, a lot of conversations before you actually go there with a camera?
Yeah, like a year. I mean, I always go there immediately with a camera. But first shooting months, I would say, are rubbish.
But what is the first conversation that you have with Vika?
I just called her and I told her, I'm scared of dying and aging. And I want to make a film about it. Yes, like hell, I disappear for my birthday every year. Not even maybe that scared of dying as aging. I think this is my biggest fear, that, one day I will not recognize myself. And I'm not talking about the physical element. It's more about the intellectual, psychological, when do we stop being ourselves and how do we accept that? So I wanted to make a film about that and convince myself that, aging doesn't mean becoming invisible, gray, erasing yourself from the surface of this world. So that's how I approached Vika. I knew her as a DJ in Poland. Back then, not as famous as now after the film, because she has literally no day off. But I already knew about her and I told her about this idea and she told me, fuck off.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Because, there's a story about this morning where she kind of told you the same thing, right?
Yeah, she always says it very straightforward, but then the fuck off always is followed by I love you.
Yeah.
She's actually a very sweet and sincere person. And when I swear in English, it doesn't sound good actually because she's the master of swearing in Polish. You need really creative translating for that.
Well, what would it be in Polish? I'm trying to learn Polish. So what would fuck off?
It's like she creates her own words. It's impossible to repeat. But you get the idea and the message. So at first she didn't agree to the film.
I want to go back to your fear of dying, though. So like, is that like, because that reveals a personal motive for even wanting to take on this topic, right? Because obviously aging and dying too are very important aspects of this film.
Yeah, it's a film about aging.
So do you feel like you were confronting your own kind of concerns or even fears about aging, dying?
Exactly. And we wanted to make it in a colorful way. So I'm joking that this film has the biggest amount of glitter, gold and light of any documentary I know. Because we have staged parts, which are musical parts with choreographies, with over 100 people dancing on the street, shot just like a fiction film would be. So it's very colorful, it's glamorous, like Vika.
Yeah.
But of course, it has these bitter elements as well as life.
Yeah. It also talks about her rapport with her family, and covers part of the period of the COVID pandemic. Quite tragic for the music community, actually, as well as everybody else. But, this fear, I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but it's interesting to me, this fear of dying, because earlier we talked about like, you need to have a little bit of courage and madness, maybe in tackling certain things. I mean, is this a way in which you also, maybe not consciously, but also kind of like try to distract yourself from this fear of time passing by in a way, like going to these different places, like even in your most recent work where you're documenting an even physically dangerous, politically unstable situation?
I'm not sure if it's about distracting. It's more about getting used to the fact, that we will all age at some point. And our aim was to show aging body in a beautiful way. We have scenes inspired by Paolo Sorrentini, La Giovanezza, his film, where the old bodies in swimming pool are shot in a nice light. And you see all the wrinkles, all the spots on the skin. But yet there is a sense of this eternal beauty.
Yeah.
So I guess that was more the case, not distracting myself.
Yeah. It's quite fascinating. You talked about like there's a lot of dancing, there's a lot of color. Did you collaborate with anyone for these dance sequences?
Yeah, I had a choreographer, Maciej Florek, with whom I collaborated previously on another film, The Queen of Silence.
Yeah. I was going to bring it up. I saw that film years ago. And I was like, so dancing, this reconnects you with the theme of dancing.
Yeah, because it's like the second documentary musical in my filmography. So, we have the same choreographer and actually even the same co-producer as HBO Max Originals. Yeah. I really like to collaborate with same people. I think what Maciek has is this amazing ability to work with people who are not professionals, like with gypsy children, as in The Queen of Silence, or senior citizens, because in our film, the average age of dancers was 75 or 80, I would even say. We had one dancer who was 92. Imagine that,
So when a project like this, how long does it take to film? Because you filmed for quite a period of time.
Over 4 years.
Over 4 years.
Yeah.
And while you're working on this film, you're also working on other projects, right?
Yeah, in this case, yes, because it was really like urgent what was going on the Polish-Belarusian border. So it was in a way schizophrenic. On one hand, I have this beautiful glittery film with Vika about joy of life. And on the other hand, I have this complete horror story from the refugee crisis in which the mother of a family dies in the forest and leaves her 16-year-old daughter to take care of her 4 younger brothers. So a dark story about the end of childhood. That was kind of schizophrenic, to work on these two films at the same time. Mm-hmm. But Vika and Runa, the protagonist of the other film, know each other. And
really?
Yes, I've met them two together. Yes, through me.
Yeah. It would have been an incredible coincidence if they had already known each other.
No. Vika gave her a wonderful jacket, designer, colorful DJ jacket.
So, I mean, is that difficult? Because to me, like from jumping from one topic to the next, it doesn't seem easy. Like, do you have to achieve a certain balance? What's the trick? Is there a trick to it?
There is no trick. I think it's madness. I would never repeat that, especially with such different films, because it's literally like one day I was having fun with Vika playing the DJ set, and the other day I was in a refugee camp listening to horror stories. Well, that's not good for your psyche.
No, I don't imagine that. I would not imagine that. I've got a friend who actually is a photographer who does the same thing. He's a photographer and he jumps from scenes of wars in different parts of the world. And then he goes and shoots, at film festivals, for example.
Yeah. And that's also a very surreal experience. We premiered Silent Trees at CPH Docs, and when we were premiering on the day we were premiering Cheerful, another person died in the forest, and it was a real surreal experience.
Yeah. Do you have any tricks to stay rooted? Like some people meditate. Do you meditate?
I dance.
You dance? Any particular music that you like to dance to?
Modern dance. This is like I did that before in my previous life.
Modern dance. You're the second modern dancer that I interview here in Vilnius.
Oh my God.
What a coincidence. Yeah, no, it's important to have things like that, right? Are you able to sleep well? This is another question that I kind of like to ask people.
No. I slept like 4 hours this night.
Yeah, is that because you can't shut off your brain?
Yeah, exactly.
Too much going on.
Too many things at the same time, too many responsibilities. I think being a documentary filmmaker is really close to madness. That's why I'm moving into fiction now, taking a break from documentaries.
This will be your fiction film debut?
Yeah.
That you're working on?
Yeah.
Can we talk about it a little bit?
Sure, we can.
We don't have to. Can you? I don't know if you want to reveal aspects of the story, but
It's about an invisible 50-year-old woman, invisible metaphorically, but also literally, who changes when her favorite tree is cut down. So her internal energy just explodes at some point. And so we move into a film which has a bit of a vibe of 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. It's about a furious, angry woman who was saying yes, yes, yes to everything her whole life. And now she's learning to say no. And I have an amazing actress who's writing a script, who did write. The script is ready. She wrote a script with me, Jovita Budnik. And we have developed this at the lab, the writer's lab that was launched by Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman.
So you co-wrote the screenplay?
Yes, we co-wrote it with the lead actress, and we're planning to shoot soon.
So you said that the worlds of documentary and fiction are not that strictly divided.
No.
But I mean, when you're working on a project like this, of course, there are certain things that are drastically different, right? Is there anything that was very, very different to you?
Just writing dialogues, I would say that's different.
So what's your approach to that? Because being a documentarian, obviously you're used to capturing dialogue, but then also that kind of gives you an experience of listening to people and knowing different people from different parts of... Yeah.
I think sometimes the weirdest dialogue lines appear in real life. And whenever I lack inspiration, I go on Metro and I listen to people. Yeah. So,
Yeah. What about the casting? What's your approach to that? Because much in the same way, for documentaries, I guess the traditional way of doing things as far as documentaries are concerned is you try to capture the person that you're filming in a natural way.
Yes.
But what happens when you actually cast for a role?
Well, the first fiction I hope I will make is not really a traditional one because I wrote it thinking about a specific actress. So
that helps. That helps.
And with her.
Amazing. Yeah. Any particular reason why you decided to make the switch? I mean, you said you wanted to take a break from documentary. Is that also because of what we talked about? Because it can be psychologically daunting, especially considering your last work.
Yeah, the Silent Trees film almost killed me. Like literally, it was just too much psychologically to be with children on the day the mother dies. It's like, only insane people sign up for that. And in general, I have this impression that the work of a documentary film director is one of the hardest. I'm serious, because we have to be at the same time at least 4 people. A good psychologist who knows how to approach different characters, because every person needs a different approach.
Yeah.
A friend who is just there and sits and holds a hand. And these friendships, they last beyond the film. I mean, I'm still friends with the Roma community I shot over 10 years ago. So that says something. Then we have to be an engineer who takes care of the construction of the story so the viewer will stay in it and not leave the audience. And an artist who has a vision, a creative aspect. And it's like, you have to be really 4 people in one. And how do you do that? And that's really very demanding, but also stressful, because the human response is that the friend should always win.
And you've also got a life, a life outside of film in a way. Yeah, you kind of have to try to keep up with your real world.
I think I messed that up because my oldest daughter is a student of 3rd year of directing. So, yeah.
Well, that can be a good thing. That's amazing, actually. That means that you were able to hand down, your passion, to her. So that's
or maybe it's
great.
A virus.
It could be. Could very well be. Well, for example, when I studied film, my parents were not happy about that. They're still not happy about that. But anyways, that's fascinating. I wanted to ask you as well, you mentioned you have to do a lot of things. Like, for example, in a film like Zwiefka, how many people are you shooting the film with? Because it felt to me like in those moments of intimacy, you couldn't have a lot of people helping you out, especially in the technical side of things.
Most of the time it was just me and my camera woman, which is very important. That was a woman, Monika Kotecka, and our sound recorders. Sometimes just me and the camera woman, and sometimes just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in documentary films, in the observational scenes, and I like working on 2 levels which are very far from each other. One is strictly observational, fly on the wall, I do not interfere. And then the other one is completely created, staged, that you can see. So in the fly on the wall layer, the less is really more.
Yeah. So talk about multitasking then in those cases, right? Because you also have to look out for the technical side of things.
Yeah, that's true.
This is great. I mean, obviously, these are intense times for you. You're presenting basically 2 films still, because Zwiefka is still here in Vilnius screening. And then now you're working on your next fiction film. So we'll definitely watch this space. But I also like to end these conversations with a very simple question. I started the conversation by asking you your earliest memory of cinema. But I also like to end conversations by returning to cinephilia. I'm a cinephile, and I also like to understand more about the people I speak with and promote the diversity of film by just seeing what people like to watch, But also at this moment in time, it's very boring to ask people, what's your favorite film? It's an impossible question to answer. But another way of putting it, like right now at this moment in time, Agnieszka, if you were to go on a deserted island and and you can only bring 1 movie right now, with where you are in your life and everything, what would that movie be?
Can I bring a DVD set of 1 director, at least?
It has to be 1 movie.
Oh my God,
That's the rule.
That's impossible.
Yeah.
It depends, what I feel like. Sometimes I want to make myself more cheerful, and then that would be a different kind of a film.
Well, right now, in this moment in time, right now,
God,
if I was to say you have to go on a deserted island.
Lobster.
The Lobster. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, it's unbelievable. Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah.
This is the 2nd film here in Vilnius by Lanthimos that someone has said. It's great. I mean, he seems to be on the rise. So why is it this film that obviously the story is very universally, people can understand it, but.
Yeah, I think he's able to achieve this balance between art house, because all his films have the fingerprints, by Lanthimos, and actually a story that is understandable and appealing to a wider audience. And I think that's very, very difficult to achieve in life.
Like relationship-wise in The Lobster, right? Because I remember that film is
the people can actually see themselves in this story. And I think not many directors know how to do that. I'm in the process of learning and trying how to have your own vision, art house, cinema, but yet, make the story for the people because we're not making them for ourselves.
Right. And in terms of your approach to your upcoming fiction film, is that something that you are looking for, that balance between art house, but also something that is accessible to people and sometimes even speaks in a very universal way, drawing on more commercial, let's say, aspects, that blend?
Definitely. This is the way I want to go. But
what are some of the other filmmakers? I mean, do you look at filmmakers for inspiration?
Yes, I do. And I love Paolo Sorrentino, as I mentioned before, which is completely different from Yorgos Lanthimos. Alice Rohrwacher is one of my favorites in Europe. So I would say it's very diverse. And in documentary film, I have actually one film that really changed my life. It's The Act of Killing by Josh Oppenheimer, which is, I think, a masterpiece of documentary.
The Act of Killing, Joshua Oppenheimer. And the follow-up too, what was it called again?
The Look of Silence. But especially The Act of Killing. When I saw this film for the first time, sometimes I believe that when I watch a film and I have goosebumps, this physical reaction to a film, that means it's a masterpiece. And I still remember my physical reaction to The Act of Killing. So,
And I can see that in a way, that influence.
Yeah.
Because he also plays with poetic visuals. Something that you like to introduce in your documentary work.
Yeah.
And colors too. I remember, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's a very colorful film. I mean, it tackles very dark subjects, but it's a very
I think we share a documentary DNA in a way. I mean, he is a master. I'm still trying to go there, but not that I'm comparing myself to him, but I think the DNA is there. And I loved what he said once about The Act of Killing, that this is documentary of imagination. And this is what I do in my films. I just didn't know how to call that because, I always enter the mind of my characters.
Documentary of imagination.
Yeah. With Vika, it's these dancing sequences with lyrics that tell the story of her inner world. And in my film Silent Trees, about the Polish-Belarusian border crisis, it's the drawings of my main protagonist that picture evil trees. And these trees come alive in a series of animated sequences. So I always, in a way, use some creative staged parts to portray the inner world of the characters.
So, Silent Trees, Vika, two films to check out right now, the two major, most recent works of yours. I just have one more final question regarding Vika, though. Having lived with her for a few years now, have you noticed any particular similarities between the two of you? Or is there something that, looking at her and what she's done and what she's been able to achieve, at this, let's say, late stage of her life, although, I hope she lives to be 200 and she still move like that and still party like that.
It's funny that you say that because, all the people that know me say that I have the energy of Vika, that it's always me, 3 a.m. festival party. Let's go somewhere. Let's have some more experience because I think what we do share with Vika is the appetite for life,
Appetite for life, yeah. Agnieszka, it's been so great chatting with you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great chatting with you. Thank you.
And with that, we have reached the end of yet another enlightening episode of the Showcast from Meeting Point Vilnius. We trust you found this exploration into the artistry of documentary filmmaking both engaging and insightful. Remember to keep an ear out for more captivating conversations and inspiring stories from the world of film in our upcoming episodes of the Showcast. And of course, stay tuned for more exciting content from Meeting Point Vilnius. We appreciate your continued support and interest in our podcast, especially as we prepare to launch our brand new podcast platform, TFV Network. So stay tuned for that one as well. Until the next time, from the Film Verdict and from Vilnius and Lithuania, this is Matt Micucci signing off. See you soon.